Hi guys. Okay, so today we're going to do 5 constructions using a compass and a straight edge. I'm going to use a protractor as my straight edge. However, I am not going to use the ruler portion of it to measure anything or the protractor portion of this here to measure any angles. I'm just going to use it to make straight line segments. The 5 constructions we're going to do are going to be a congruent triangle using side angle side. Last time we did a congruent triangle using side side side. We're going to do a segment bisector. Basically, we're going to cut this perfectly in half. We're going to do an angle bisector, cut this angle in half, and then we are going to do a perpendicular that goes through point A and is perpendicular to this line segment. Then we're going to do same idea here except for parallel. We're going to draw a parallel through B, and it's going to be parallel to this line segment. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with the side angle side method for congruent triangles is essentially just copy an angle. And the angle I'm going to copy is going to be this one right here. So the way I begin to copy angles is to first draw a line segment that's obviously well, it just needs to be long enough here. So I'm gonna do one. I'm gonna make it longer than this side here, because later I'm gonna cut it short. So I'm just gonna go ahead and draw that here. Looks obviously longer to me. Okay, and then I'm gonna take my compass and I'm going to open it up and put the stylus right here at this vertex and make an arc that goes through, let's see here, goes through both of those sides. I'm going to do the same thing here and make an arc that's big enough. Okay, so now I've got, this is the same length as this. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my stylus right here and measure that width. Okay, so from here to up here. And this is again how this is just nothing different than when we learned to copy an angle. Okay, so that's how wide that is there. I don't know if you can see with the shadows. I apologize. Get it just right there. So that's how wide that is. And now I'm going to put it right here in that same location, and I'm going to make an intersection there. And now what I can do with my straight edge is I can connect from here to here, and I will have a congruent angle just right. So that was kind of a sad, but we're just going to go with it there. Okay, the shadows are a little bit difficult. So and then the next part of this is pretty simple. You just need to measure, because we now have, right now what we have is a congruent angle. This angle is congruent to this one, and so now we just got to measure the two sides on either side of it. So we've got this side and this side. If we get those the same, then we'll have side, angle, side. So as I go ahead and measure that here, I'm gonna go, and I don't actually have to make a mark up here. I'm just gonna measure it. So now I'm gonna shorten that side length there. Then this one, I'm gonna measure this side length from here to here, right there, and then do the same thing over here. So now I've essentially got side, angle, side, side, angle, side. I'm going to go ahead and connect those. As soon as I can pick up my straight edge, it's stuck. There it goes. Okay. And from here to there. Okay, and there's my congruent triangles via side, angle, side. Okay, I think the angle of the camera here makes it a little bit disproportionate looking, but those are, for the most part, congruent triangles. Okay, next, the segment bisector. And so the way we do the segment bisector here is it's really quick and simple. Just put your stylus at one end of the segment here, and you want to make sure that you open up the width of this so that it is obviously wider than halfway across. Okay, so I need another piece of paper underneath here. Okay, so it needs to be obviously wider than halfway across, and you want to mark above and below. I don't have to make this continuous arc here. It's okay that I did. It's just kind of nice to see. And then I keep the same radius. I don't change it. Go to the other side. Okay, and then do the same thing right there. Okay, and now what I've done is I have created two intersections for me to connect, and this will actually bisect this line segment. Now, I haven't really explained why this works yet. I'm going to try and do that in just a second. But anyway, it's pretty simple. So you just connect right through there. Okay, now why does this create a bisector? And essentially, how do I know that this segment is congruent to this segment? Well, if you connect from here to here, if you were to draw a line from there to there, it would, I'm just going to draw it faint here. This isn't actually, this part, so the construction's done. You don't have to do this part for your homework or anything. I'm just explaining why now. So if you were to connect from there to there, and then do the same thing on this side over here, okay, and then do the same thing down here, the same thing down here, okay. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 congruent line segments here. So this side is congruent to this side is congruent to this side. We've actually created a rhombus, but we don't necessarily know in this class all the properties of a rhombus, so we can't just use that to define things. But we do have an isosceles triangle here, and we do know that that this altitude and this altitude, this would be an altitude here, and this would be an altitude here. So we know that these are perpendiculars. Same thing if you looked at the triangle this way, this big triangle here, this is another isosceles triangle. Also, if you look at these two triangles outside here, you see that these triangles are going to be congruent to each other, okay, as well as the ones above and below. And then again, since we have a perpendicular in here, this is an angle, right? And we would also have, so this side kind of like being congruent to itself here. You can use several different ways of looking at triangles to see that this length here, okay, would be congruent to this length over here. Again, knowing that this is a congruent angle here. Also that we've got congruent triangles because of side, side, side going all the way around. We know that this angle and this angle are congruent. So we've got angle, angle, side, which would tell us that these two angles are congruent. So there's a lot of different ways by just looking at the different triangles that we could have created from this that you can show that this length is the same as this length. I may have jumbled that explanation a little bit there, but that's basically how we can tell that this length and this length are the same, so we know it's a bisector. And again, all these triangle drawings, all these little marks and stuff on here, they're not part of the construction. You don't have to do that part. It's just an explanation of why that makes a bisector. Okay, for this next one here, to bisect an angle, this one again is pretty simple, but then I'll give a little bit longer explanation as to why it works. So first thing you're gonna do, just open up your compass to whatever radius you want. Put the stylus at the vertex of the angle and make a mark here. And so we now have congruent segments here and here. And so then what you're going to do is you're going to take your stylus and you're going to put it at each of these intersections, and you're going to make marks out here. And the one thing that's important is that this goes at more than that they're going to have to meet. So you don't have to keep it exactly the same. You can, but you don't have to. And depending on the angle that you're trying to bisect and how wide your original radius was, I'm just going to move it a little bit so that you can show that it can be opened up a little bit more. And I'm going to make an arc out here, okay? And then I'm going to keep the same radius and move the stylus to the other intersection, okay? And make another mark out there. And now this point is what's going to, where I'm going to connect from the vertex to there, and that'll give me the bisector. So let me put that here, go here. Sure that works. Okay, from there to there. It's hard to tell with all these shadows in the lighting, sorry. Okay, but so that should give me congruent angles here and here. Now, why does that work? And again, the accuracy of these congruent angles doesn't have to be perfect. It's just knowing how to do the marks. I think I hit mine a little high on this mark down here. I needed to be a little bit lower to make it look better, but it's fine. So how do I know that these are supposed to be congruent here? And again, this is all you need for the construction part. So if you're just focused on just doing the construction, this is you're done. This is the only part you need here. The why it works, that's what's next. Essentially, if you connect again from here to here, why does this work? Okay, you've got side, side, side. So those three sides make congruent triangles. And if they're congruent triangles, that means these angles are going to be congruent to each other. Okay, so that's the why of why the angle bisector works. And again, that part is not really part of the construction. It's just why it works. All right, moving on. The perpendicular to a segment through point A. And we're going to take a little bit of a clue from our segment bisector. It's going to be a little bit similar to that. But and again, this is all about congruent triangles. This is why all of this stuff works. So the first thing that we're going to do, though, is we're going to put our stylus on point A. And then we have to open up the compass so that it is wider, so that the radius is longer than the distance from A to the line segment, because we're going to make two marks, or we need two intersections here. I'm going to make one big arc so that you can see that it's all from the same radius. Okay, and so I just need to make sure that I reach the line here, and yeah, there we go. So here, like that. Okay, and now what I've done is I've created 2 points here and here that are equidistant from point A. So I've essentially got this length and this length are equidistant. Okay, so now I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to put it in it. It just has to be more than halfway across here again. But I'm going to put marks out below this from each side that are congruent. So, gosh, the shadows are so bad. I apologize. Let me try to move that light over there. Okay, so I'm going to put, I'm going to make sure it's more than halfway. Yep. So I'm going to put marks out here. Okay. And then from the other side here. Like that. Okay, so now to finish this up, I'm going to go ahead and connect from point A through here. And I kind of missed that intersection there, but it looks pretty good. So this now has created a right angle or a perpendicular from A through the line segment. Now, that's it for the construction. You don't have to draw that little mark in there for your construction. So then the follow-up here is, why does this work? You might be starting to get the picture here, but we've got congruent triangles again. So, and we use a lot of isosceles triangles. Isosceles triangles, when you draw a height or an altitude, you always have a perpendicular, or it always bisects the other side. So that's something that you can know. So say we have this here and this here, since we've got this now, so we've got these triangles here, that's got the congruent length there, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. Now these have a different length than this one, okay? So, but still an isosceles triangle. And whenever you drop an altitude from an isosceles triangle, you know that the altitude is a perpendicular. So this way we know that this is a perpendicular that goes through this line segment. Okay, so that's the perpendicular. And the final one is the parallel. There's a lot of different ways to do this, the parallel. Some people do two perpendiculars, but my favorite way to do this is just to create congruent angles. Essentially going to create parallel lines using the corresponding angles concept there. So what I do first is I'm going to take the end of this line segment and draw. It doesn't actually even matter where I draw it from. I can draw it from here, I can draw it from here. I tend to do it from here at the end. It's a little cleaner to me, but you don't have to do that. You can do it from anywhere on the line segment. Draw a line through B and past it, okay? So I'm going to draw it from here, and I'm going to go through B like that, okay? And so what I'm going to do now, I've created an angle. I'm going to copy this angle up here. So I'm going to do a congruent angle from what we did the first day we were doing these. So I'm going to, and essentially the goal is then to have a parallel that goes through this, so it's parallel to there. So the first thing I'm going to do, if you remember to copy angles, I'm going to put an arc through the angle. Like that, okay? And then I got to go up here, and this is where my angle copy is going to be, and I'm going to put an arc through that one, okay? So then the next thing I've got to do is I've got to measure this distance here. So I'm going to take my stylus, put it right there, point of my pencil, put it there, okay? And so I know that that's the distance between us. I should really, the way I'm going to end up doing it is this way, because, so from, sorry for the lighting, but basically from here to here. And so I'm going to do that up there, put it on here, okay, and I'm going to make a mark there, okay, and then I'm going to go from B through that intersection, and that should give me a congruent angle here. Okay, and so there's my parallel that goes through B, and if you want to, you can extend it past, goes through B. It's parallel to the original line segment. And again, we just created congruent angles. And so essentially what this is this is a corresponding angle to this one. These are the parallel lines, that's the transversal. And so these corresponding angles create the parallel line. So that's it. That's the 5 constructions for Monday. And then again, I will go over a few more on Wednesday, and we'll have all of them due on Friday. So your homework for this week, well, for the first part of this week, the first section is to be able to do these 5 constructions, and I'll put that on Google Classroom, but that's your homework, to do these 5 constructions. Okay.